Hi, I'm Gavin Jackson. I'm joined here today with Rich Pugh as we start to talk through the opportunities, challenges, and risks businesses are facing today with the advances in AI and generative AI capabilities. I mean, just to kick us off, Rich, if you were to try and describe the AI landscape, the AI market at the moment in one word, what would it be?
Fast. Fast changing, but that's two words, so that's cheating already. But look, I think that the pace of change in the AI capability set right now is just breathtaking. I think in the last year we've seen major releases every month, and as we roll forward, we're expecting that to reduce down to major updates every few weeks, and that's incredible, right? I mean, it creates such an opportunity. But also a challenge, right? How do you invest in something that changes fundamentally every few weeks? So I think that yeah, it's really exciting times, lots of opportunities for organizations everywhere. And I think one of the most important things we're doing right now is to help customers make really smart investment decisions at this time of unprecedented change. So how about yourself? What word would you use?
Just one, I think I would go for hype. Probably builds on some of the points that you were talking about. I mean, obviously, you can't move in the press and the media mainstream around AI being talked about. But I also think that's kind of in a way a good thing. Maybe I'm looking at this from a sort of optimistic lens, but I think it's bringing together people within organizations and within society who are having some really great conversations about where this capability can be used, how it can add value and sort of change people's lives for the better. So lots of hype, but I'm hoping for the good. What would you see as the next big thing in the AI market at the moment?
Well, it's got to be Agentic AI, right? I think that for the last year or so, everyone's been excited about Gen AI, so generative AI, so the ability to create content that's indistinguishable from human-generated content. So there's been a real excitement and a lot of investment in generative AI. But I think we're seeing a lot of organizations who really struggle to transform that investment into real tangible business value. I think things like hallucinations, for example, have been a real challenge. You know, if you've got a process that's 12 steps and step 3 is to read information from a document, any sense of, well, actually, it might get that wrong is, it puts the whole question of the process under, it makes it very, very difficult to adopt. So I think that's been a real challenge in the last year or so. I think agentic AI is interesting because it almost acts as a vehicle that allows us to really access and leverage these Gen AI capabilities against real world business challenges. So agentic AI is really where we're able to create autonomous agents who are able to independently, perform tasks, create knowledge and so on, and of course work together to collaborate and automate processes. So it's an incredible technology and something that we've been working on now for about 18 months, and the results we've seen have been astonishing. So we've talked about some of the opportunities. We've talked about some of the great stuff that's going on. What about the risks? So when you look at the world of AI right now, what are the key challenges that you think businesses are facing as they start to explore AI?
It's a good question. I think there are many challenges. I think if we were to summarize them up into some key themes, I think number one would be, well, where do I start? There's so many places across the organization that I could start to think about utilizing this capability for. How can I invest with a confidence to know that actually this is the right place to start? Whether it's in my operations, whether it's with my people teams, whether it's customer facing. How do I know that I'm actually starting to sort of place the bets in the right place? I think then as organizations are really then starting to think about, okay, let's develop a POC, let's explore those ideas further. Are the foundational capabilities there to allow me to kind of develop these agentic capabilities that you talked about, Rich? So do we have the data assets? Do we have the technology? Do we have the infrastructure to actually build out and really drive value from these capabilities? And I guess finally, linked to the sort of technology requirements, it's the skills and the talent to build these systems to really drive value from operationalizing them. I think where we're seeing companies drive an awful lot of value is being able to put these POCs into production to really, really operationalize the systems. That takes engineering skills, it takes data science skills, and it takes an awful lot of collaboration with the businesses to make sure that these are safe and compliant and will work. So, Rich, you've mentioned agentic being the sort of the next big thing in the AI market. For organizations who really want to embrace this capability, what sort of recommendations would you make for them?
So I think it's back to what you said before, which is that which use case do you choose when the use case is basically everything? Because agentic is so ubiquitous in terms of its capabilities, in some terms of the use cases you can actually go after. So where do you start really? And just remind us, agentic AI is about creating these autonomous agents who are able to collaborate together to achieve great things. Um, so I think if I look at the use cases that we've delivered in the last year or so, we've explored lots of different patterns, but I think the two most common patterns are probably reflection and orchestration. So reflection is possibly the simplest possible agentic pattern. It's the idea of creating two agents who work together to create accurate and correct outputs. So right now, people might use something like a ChatGPT in order to create content. Maybe it's to draft an email to a customer or to write some code or maybe to extract insights from a document. But the challenge is that that there's a potential for hallucinations. So what you do is you have to review that content and then maybe feed back to the agent so it can refine and so on. So reflection is really about creating, instead of a human and an agent, is to create two agents. So one who's responsibility for creating the content and one who is responsible for reviewing the content and ensuring it is correct and appropriate, and creating that feedback loop so you can essentially eliminate the potential for hallucinations and create really great outputs. The other pattern orchestration, that's really about creating teams of agents who all know their own role, who use particular tools, but they all together collaborate to automate a particular process or workflow. And I think that the key with this is to make sure they all understand what the intention, what are the constraints, what we're trying to achieve, and they can then essentially reason and work together to achieve that outcome.
Really exciting. And you mentioned about some of the use cases that we've been working on. Any particular that bring those two patterns to life?
My absolute favorite reflection use case has got to be in the pharmaceutical industry. So we're working with one of the top pharmaceutical companies in the world, and we're working in the area of clinical trials. So the reason I like this use case is, in the world of clinical trials, accuracy is everything, right? You can't get that wrong. And what we've seen is we've been working with this company now for about a year, and what we have found is that we can actually use that reflection pattern to create really accurate code that will analyze clinical trials. So not only are we actually reducing risk because the code is so accurate, but we're also managing to reduce costs by $50 million plus a year. So really exciting use case. And again, because it's in an area that proves the point really, which is, you can create such accurate and compliant output. I think from an orchestration perspective, there's lots that I've seen. One of my favorites is quite a simple one, which is in the insurance industry. We're working with a client who is working within the area of claims. So when you have a claim for insurance, you receive an email and some attachment, let's say, to register that claim. And we have a team right now in place who will interpret the email, open the attachment, understand the claim, and then essentially extract that information and put it into a system. Now, the challenge with this process is that more often than not, the information that you get is either incomplete or perhaps more commonly is a little vague. So I'll give you an example. If we're in marine insurance, location of loss, like where the loss happened, is really important. So if the location of loss is at sea, that's not very informative. So we have to go back to the customer to say, could you clarify where, for example? So we're using agentic AI not just to automate the extraction of information, but the auto-generation of compliant communications back to the customer to be able to actually go back and forth and clarify this information before filling in the system. So really, really exciting. What about yourself? Have you seen some good examples recently of maybe reflection or orchestration that have inspired you?
Yeah, I think in the sort of media and retail space, especially, the ability to create tailored content at a scale that we've not been able to achieve before. I think one of the bigger challenges has been, how do we create email or social content or content for our website that we feel is reflective of our customers, reflective of our brand and our tone of voice with any level of confidence. And this reflection loop where we can actually bring in the personas of our customers to that step. So, one agent might represent a copywriter, but another agent actually might represent one of the key personas or the key customer types that you're looking to target. So really having that customer perspective on any content before it's actually even seen a real customer, I think is super, super powerful.
That's fab. You know, I saw a quote recently from Jensen Huang, CEO of NVIDIA. He said that today NVIDIA is 32,000 employees, but he envisaged a future where NVIDIA is 50,000 human employees and 100 million AI employees. So just one workforce, just some happen to be digital and some happen to be biological. It's an interesting view of the future, and certainly raises questions about the role of humans in the workforce.
Absolutely. And I think there's the, as a person showing up to work, how can I be more effective in the way I work? But then also the nature and the types of work that we as humans are more naturally good at. It's freeing us up to do more of that. And also I think some really nice examples recently, especially in the accessibility space. So people who've probably found it hard to contribute to their fullest in the workplace. So whether that's because they've got hearing challenges or sight challenges, actually able to use some of these agentic and generative capabilities to sort of fully contribute in a way that they haven't been able to before, which is really, really exciting. And then I think in, especially in customer facing organizations, we're going to be able to see, where staff have had lots of administrative overheads, almost taking them away from having some of those meaningful interactions with customers, that being taken away, automated through some agentic capabilities, so that actually, if I'm on a shop floor in a large retailer, more of my time is spent in front of customers, interacting with customers, or doing the things that's going to have the biggest impact on customer experience, not necessarily filling out forms or doing bits of administrative work that take me away from that.
Okay, so Gavin, with all this capability that's emerging, all this fantastic functionality that AI has given us, what risks do businesses face if they don't harness this, in their organizations?
I think not to put too fine a point on it, but extinction. I mean, the level of disruption we're seeing across every single sector is massive. There's going to be an individual or there's going to be a startup, whichever sector you pick right now, that is going to be thinking about how does this capability help them create a leaner, smarter, more engaging organization. So I think that the organizations that aren't now thinking about how does this capability affect us as a company, how do we start to think about leveraging it, are really, really going to struggle. This pace of change that you've mentioned a few times, it's only accelerating. And it's never too late. I think maybe that's one of the key points to get across, though. It's not too late, but you just need to be making a start and really thinking about how can this capability make a difference to us as an organization and the key activities that we perform as a business. And I guess on the point of use cases and investments, a bit of a sort of negative question, this one, but what would you say is the quickest way to turn an investment in AI into a missed opportunity?
That's a good question. I think that look, for me, I think that there's a lot of investment in AI right now. I think with all the hype you mentioned earlier about generative AI and agentic AI, clearly people are rushing to invest in AI generally. And I think with that urgency to invest, with that rush, I think there is obviously the risk of misinvestment, right? I think it's very easy in the AI space to spend money. That's easy to do, right? It's much harder to kind of deliver value. So how do organizations not spend money brilliantly solving the wrong problem, right? Which is kind of a big pitfall in AI. I think this is where it's really important to get practical, real-world advice from people who have worked and delivered solutions in AI, who really have deep expertise, who are able to apply it to in an industry-relevant way. I think that practical advice, and support is essential for companies if you want to add value, because otherwise it's, there's so many use cases to choose from, it's very easy to pick the wrong one. Or sometimes perhaps pick the one right next to the right one to solve, which I've seen quite a lot as well. So definitely, the key message I think here is really get the right advice so you can invest in the right things.
Brilliant. Thanks.
So we've spoken a lot about Morpheus. We know Morpheus very well. How is Morpheus allowing organizations to really push the boundaries?
It's a really good question. So I think you mentioned a few of the use cases today. I think what Morpheus is allowing our clients to do is to deploy some of these agentic capabilities, these large language model capabilities in large scale enterprises with the appropriate compliantry wrappers around them, the correct engineering to make sure that these systems are safe and compliant. As we've talked several times today, the capability is really exciting, but how can customers of ours really trust that the systems they're putting in place are not going to do harm to their customers, their clients, and actually deliver the value that they think they will? And that's where Morpheus comes in. It's the framework around deploying these agentic capabilities, and it's also, I think, the way of thinking in terms of outcomes. So part of a Morpheus deployment is not just the sort of technology and the infrastructure itself. It's thinking through the outcomes that we're trying to achieve with the capability, with the correct measures and checks and balances in place. So thanks, Rich. I think we've covered an awful lot of ground today, some of the risks, some of the challenges, some of the opportunities. If there was one takeaway that you would leave with people from the conversation, what would it be?
So fundamentally, AI represents an opportunity and a threat for every business today, right? There's no exception here. And I think the other thing as well is the pace of change means that we're seeing these step change capabilities coming through all the time at pace. So, for me, what do you do? What do you do amongst this kind of fast moving world where, almost to a point where if you invest in something today, almost by the time it's finished, it's already obsolete. It's already moved on. So what can you do when the innovation flywheel is moving so fast? I think for me, it's three things. One is advice. Make sure you've got access to people who can give you real world practical advice, very experienced people who have seen and built these systems, who really have not just experimented, but have really moved the needle in organizations, right? So I know that we are very proud to be trusted partners of some of the most recognized brands in the world today, and being able to actually provide that advice is critical. I think the second thing, which you picked up on earlier, is get the fundamentals right. So, as these capabilities come along, you don't want to be stuck thinking about legacy or, slowing yourselves down with tech and so on. So you need to be, I think the winners are going to be the most nimble organizations, those that are able to leverage capabilities and experiment and try them out as they come along. So focus on the fundamentals of business and the building blocks of your organization. And then lastly, explore, test, learn, and there's loads of value to be had with some of these techniques, particularly the agentic AI capabilities. So really getting your hands dirty and actually kind of trying this stuff out is critical. So lots of opportunity out there right now, and for me, it's about having the right partner.
Thanks, Rich.